Okay, so we are continuing our Indisputable Truth Book Series. We're in the third edition of the book. We're on page 125. We're on the section of benefits of living by the Torah in this world. Some often wonder if it's worth it to try to keep the Torah. It is true that keeping the Torah requires one to push himself or herself and may not always be so simple. However, in this section, it will hopefully become very clear that although it may not always be an easy task, it is definitely a worthwhile investment. So let's talk about marriage. So we're going to talk about different ideas of how living by the Torah's instructions. Again, what is Torah? Instructions for life. That means any aspect of life, Torah is there to give you a guidance. And I love to use this example. There's two ways of going through a maze and getting to the middle. One is through trial and error, meaning I go through this way, I go through that way, I make mistakes, right? And you get to the middle. And one is with a GPS navigation, Waze navigation. The Torah is the Waze navigation, gets you in the middle at the easiest amount of time and the less amount of fastest amount of time and least amount of frustration. But without the Torah, if you're trying to get to the middle, maybe you might never get to the middle. And even if you do get to the middle, it'll be with lots of frustration and time wasted. You're gonna go left, you're gonna go right, you're gonna hit a dead end. You don't know where to go. You don't have a navigation. But the Torah is like the guidebook. It's like somebody who's looking up and just guiding you exactly where to go and how to reach the middle. Okay? It's the shortcut. It's the cheat code to life. So the Torah talks about everything, so let's focus on one aspect of marriage. How if you keep the Torah, if you follow the Torah and you keep it and you really live by it, you'll have a better marriage. When one looks at marriage, when one looks at the marriage situation in today's world, marriage doesn't seem like a good investment. The national divorce rate in America is roughly 50% on average, and in some places it is much higher. I think in California it's like 70%, above 70% intermarriage. Divorce. Many existing marriages are not so happy. There's some people, they ask them, do you think you married the right one? And if you think you married the wrong one, would you go marry somebody else if you had an opportunity? And a lot of people, I think I saw some kind of survey that said they think they married the wrong person, and if they could, they would marry somebody else. So no doubt that marriage is going to be like trash if you think you married the wrong person, right? Obviously, the big question is, why? Why is it such a high divorce rate? Why is the marriage institution basically a failure? Okay? The answer, simply put, is that people are going into marriage blindly and they lack a clear understanding of the purpose of marriage. In addition, so number one, if you're going into a marriage and you don't even know what the purpose of marriage is, like people just get married. Oh, let me get married. For what? What's the point? Do you even know what marriage is? But just be boyfriend and girlfriend. Why do you need to go make a whole wedding ceremony, put a ring on her finger, what is the point? Just get people a boyfriend, girlfriend. If you're Jewish, you can't do that, right? I'm just saying, but if you're not religious, you have no connection. So why are you getting married? Why are people getting married? What's the point? The answer is, right, obviously, because the Torah says there's a purpose to marriage, but most people don't know the purpose. Now, how do you think you're going to be successful in marriage if you don't even know what it's about, even if you know the goal, right? It's like me saying, I want to make $1 billion and run a $1 billion company, and I don't even know what my niche is. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just saying, you want to run a company, you want to have a business, but you don't know what the goal of the business, you don't even know what the purpose of the business is, how are you going to be successful? So, in addition, they never spent time learning on how to approach marriage. They never learn. People go into marriage, not only do they not know the purpose, they don't even come prepared. They just go into it like it's a job. I'll just figure it out. Even by the way, even for work, people go and they train before they go into it. But marriage, they don't. And everything else, you want to be an airplane pilot, you train before you go do it. You want to go, become a doctor, lawyer, you train. All of a sudden, when it comes to marriage, no one decides, okay, I need to get training, I need to learn what to do. I'm just going to go into it and figure it out and just wing it, right? We don't do it in every other area of our life. However, Orthodox Jews are obligated by Torah to learn about marriage before they even enter it. And they have plenty of material to learn from. From the written Torah to the Talmud to modern Jewish books, we have so much information and teachings on how to maintain a happy and successful marriage. So the idea is that not only do Orthodox Jews know the purpose of marriage, because we have it in the Torah, God tells us, right? And obviously it's a whole topic, maybe I'll touch upon it here, of marriage, what the purpose of marriage is. But we also have the instructions on how to have the best marriage, how to treat your wife, how to respect her, same thing with the girl, right? But, from the girl's perspective, we have so much information, so much content, that if you study through the content, you really live up to it, there's no way you can have a bad marriage. It's just no way. I read, the marriage books. I could show you the ones I have here. There's a marriage book here. One of the best marriage books, I think. 10 really dumb mistakes very smart couples make. there's a marriage book called The Garden of Peace, right? This is a great book to read, The Garden of Peace. There's a non-Jewish book, but they kind of made like a Jewish version of it, The 5 Love Languages. There's so many, there's book after books on how to have the best marriage. Especially before you want to get married. Don't think, I'm going to learn when I get married, I'll read the book. It's too late. You got to start way before. Even if you're single, you should start learning about marriage and how to treat your wife and all that stuff. Maybe that'll even, help you get a wife even faster. So we know the purpose of marriage, Orthodox Jews, and not only do we know the purpose, we know how to maintain a happy and successful marriage. Furthermore, marital guidance that Orthodox Jews receive is not like any marital guidance from any ordinary marriage counselor. It's not some Joe Schmo guy who went through like 10 divorces. A lot of the people, they write books, they said after 10 divorces, now I know how to be a good husband. Like, what are you talking about? We don't want to learn from a guy like that. Okay, yeah, maybe, obviously maybe he has good things to say, right? But I'm just saying like who the greatest being to get that wisdom from is from God. He created marriage. He created the psychology of man and woman. He knows everything. There's no one who knows better than God. And God's, will is the Torah. So if you want to know what God says on a topic or how God approaches it, go to the Torah. So Orthodox Jews receive guidance from the Creator himself. As a result of this, marriage is much more successful in the Orthodox world, as the divorce rate is significantly less compared to the general population. Okay? They say that the divorce rate in the Orthodox world is 10%. But even the 10% divorce rate, the rabbis say is very high, and this may be due to the fact that a lot of Orthodox Jews are influenced by secular society around them, meaning a lot of people call themselves Orthodox, but they don't live such Orthodox lives, right? But again, it's still a very low number compared to everybody else, right? But again, if you want to know people who are real, I'm not talking about modern Orthodox, I'm talking about like actual, again, not that modern Orthodox is not Orthodox, I'm saying people who are more to the right, meaning in their orthodoxy, they're very, in their Torah learning, their mitzvah observance, their character traits, and helping other people who are very, very, observant, they have very low marriage rates. It's very rare. If the less observant you become, the higher the divorce rate. It's kind of like a pattern in a sense. Okay, obviously, there's the divorce. There has to be cases where people, God forbid, need to get divorced. If the husband is crazy, the wife is crazy. They're, again, not that you define that they're crazy. Okay, it doesn't work like that. Right? But I'm just saying, God forbid, let's say chas v'shalom, God forbid someone's abusive and whatever. There's situations where it's a mitzvah to get divorced. But generally speaking, right? Obviously you have to have an Orthodox rabbi to guide you and, high level people in these areas, in these fields to give you guidance. But the idea is generally speaking that Orthodox, Jews don't get divorced. Why? Not because, it's frowned upon to get it. No, it's just the idea that we have the success manual. There's no need to get divorced. We don't look at marriage as like a plastic cup like in the non-Jewish world. This plastic cup is done, let me get a new one. No, we look at marriage as there's problems. We're not perfect. We're already coming to the idea that we both know we're not perfect and we both need to work on ourselves and become better. But the idea is we know there's a challenge. We know we're coming into a challenge. Before you get married, they always tell you, don't think marriage is going to be easy. It's going to be a picnic. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be times where you have to put down your ego. Your wife's going to have to put down her ego. The idea is that we're coming into it prepared, right? We know what it's about. So, and other than that, according to statistics, Orthodox Jews in America have an 80 to 85% chance of getting married. And the divorce rate is at 10%, like we said. So again, not only do we have a high marriage rate, in the secular world, the marriage rate is very low. People are not getting married. But not only do we have a high marriage rate, we also have a very low divorce rate. It is clear that this major difference in divorce rates between secular and Orthodox people indicates that the Torah ideology is very helpful. Okay? Again, are there exceptions to the rule? Are there people who keep the Torah and think? Yes. Obviously, I'm not saying everybody who keeps Torah is perfect, but I'm saying generally speaking, people who live by the Torah and live by its teaching, yes, generally speaking, are more successful in their marriages. That's kind of like a given because the Torah teaches you everything about what to do. And it's just if you read what I'm saying, you go through the books, you'll see how it's very logical what I'm saying. Okay, next thing. Another reason why Orthodox Jewish marriages are a big success is because of the many commandments that God gave us in the Torah to enhance and strengthen the marriage. Mitzvahs that fall under this category include the laws of so there's basically a lot of mitzvahs God gave us in the Torah that if we keep these mitzvot, it's built in within the mitzvah to have a successful marriage. I'll give you a couple. Guarding your eyes, modesty, shomer negiah, shomer habrit, yichud, respecting and honoring your wife and husband, family purity, and many more. So let's go through each one. Right? Guarding your eyes. obviously, if you guard your eyes, what does that mean, guard your eyes? Guard your eyes means you're not allowed to look at something inappropriate, something that you're not allowed to look at. For example, if you're a married man, or even if you're not a married man, even if you're single, the Torah obligates you to guard your eyes from immodesty, from things that, so that means if you go on Instagram and you see every 2 seconds a picture of a girl in a, that's improperly dressed, you're not allowed to look at that according to the Torah. I don't care. And even if the Torah says if it's some girl, beautiful supermodel, and you don't, she's totally dressed modest, and you just want to stare at her, enjoy her beauty, you're not allowed to do that. Okay? The Torah says you want to look at someone's beauty, look at your wife's beauty. And if you're single, okay, Bezrat Hashem, if you're going on a date with a girl, yes, obviously you don't stare at her and get enjoy her beauty, whatever, and get sexually don't make yourself don't look at her in a sexual way. Again, if you're just looking at her to see, okay, do I find her attractive? Does she look good for me, right? And you're not looking at her in a sexual way, then it's okay, right? You're just, okay, is my wife pretty? I want to know. I'm not going to close my eyes and get married, right? Obviously, the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says the opposite. You can't, if someone says, oh, you don't know how the girl looks like, and just get married to her, you're not allowed to do that. You have to first see your wife, see if she's beautiful in your eyes, not in anybody else's eyes, in your eyes, right? Who cares what your friends say, what you think? And then after you see your wife, whatever, then you go on a couple of dates, you get to know her, right? There's a whole process. We'll talk about that later. But the idea is, if someone guards his eyes, what's the power of guarding your eyes? So think of it like this, and I love to say this example. Imagine a Jewish girl from a scale of 0 to 10. Again, not to, God forbid, put scales. I'm just giving an example just to make just to make what I'm trying to say sensible. Okay, let's say a girl from 0 to 10, she's an 8 on a scale. If a guy doesn't guard his eyes and he looks at every single supermodel in the world on Instagram and on Facebook and on TikTok and on Google and whatever it is, right? That beautiful Jewish girl who's really an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, because he looks at all these supermodels and takes all their good, and in his brain he makes like a perfect image of a girl. Now he compares the girl, this Jewish girl, right, who could potentially be his soulmate, he compares her to the supermodel, and now he doesn't find her attractive anymore. When in reality, if he guarded his eyes and he didn't look at those things, he would think, according to his standard definition of what's pretty and what's not, he would think that girl's pretty. So the idea is that it makes you desensitized. Looking at inappropriate things makes you desensitized, and then when it comes to the real thing, what happens? All of a sudden, the guy goes out with 100 girls. You know that type of guy who's so picky. Every girl you sent him, even if it's the most beautiful girl, he always has some type of problem. Could be he's not watching his eyes. Could be he's one of those people who's just looking at so many girls, and now he's trying to compare. Or the idea is that if you guard your eyes, right, you will enhance not only your chances of getting married, but also if you're married to your wife will be more beautiful in your eyes. You'll give your wife more love instead of giving your attention and whatever to other girls who don't belong to you. Okay, whether that's on the phone and digital, or whether it's in person on the street. That's the power of guarding your eyes. Okay, so just to read the footnote, this law means to avoid looking at people or objects which arouse sexual feelings or thoughts, such as women, especially those immodestly dressed, whether live or images of them. This idea also applies to women. Avoid looking at men in a way that causes illicit thoughts. Again, if it's your wife, you're allowed to look at your wife's beauty. That's allowed, 100%. But again, anybody who's not your wife, and again, you're not planning to marry them or whatever, again, it could be it's a different story. Again, when I say with dating, also you can't do it in a sexual, illicit. What's the word for it? That's going to arouse sexual feelings. It has to be purely just, I want to see if she's beautiful in my eyes, not in a sexual way. Okay, very important. A lot of people are going to take, what I said, and they could, misunderstand. So I just want to be really, really clear because it's important. Okay, another thing is modesty, right? So what is modesty? This includes many things, but in short, it's acting in a modest way in dress, speech, and action. For example, wearing clothing that is not too revealing, and speaking and acting in a refined way. So because Jews act modest, for example, let's say the Jewish guy, not only is he modest in guarding his eyes, but in the way he talks. He doesn't talk in a we call it nivel peh, right? In an inappropriate way. Same thing with the girl, right? They don't curse, they don't talk, they don't speak dirty language, or the girl, she dresses modestly, she covers her body. She doesn't wear a skirt that's so tight that everybody sees her walking, right? And they could see her form, right? Or her chest area is not too open, right? She covers her, until her whatever, right here, this area, past the elbow, right? And the knees, below the knees, right? That's the standard of Jewish modesty. If you want more details, go on YouTube and type in, or ChatGPT and type in Orthodox, standard of modesty, whatever, or read books on it. I'm not going to go into all the laws of it. But the idea is, when people are modest, right? If a girl and guy are modest in the way they dress, okay? Number one, let's say a girl dresses immodestly on a date. Let's put it this way. If a girl's very immodest, you know what's going to happen? Her and the guy, they're immodest, they touch each other, whatever, all that stuff. Then the guy, instead of, holding himself back, he's going to start, God forbid, making sins, doing inappropriate things, right? He's not supposed to be doing, and you guys can understand what I'm saying, right? And he's going to do stuff with the girl. And guess what? When he's already doing stuff with the girl, why should he get married? He already has her as a wife now. Why should he wait and get married? And then he's going to push it off, and eventually, most relations like that end, and then that's it. He never got married, right? But if a person holds himself back in the sense that the girl is modest, she doesn't tempt the guy doesn't think, and the idea of shomer negiah. What is shomer negiah? Not to touch members of the opposite gender except between husband and wife or close blood relatives. Again, why is shomer negiah important? Why, as a guy, can I touch any girl I want? That means you can't go hug any girl who's not your wife, your mother, your daughter, whatever, your immediate relatives. You can't go hug and kiss and other girls. Why? Because because we're worried that what's going to happen. Hashem's worried that if you do that, you're going to end up sinning. You're going to have bad thoughts. You're going to do things, right? And it's really in a sense like, who are you? This is somebody else's husband or someone else's wife. Why are you hugging them? Like, you stick to your spouse and they stick to their spouse, right? Or same thing when the girl's single, you get all touchy with her. Who says this is going to be your wife? Until you marry her, who says she's going to be your wife? So if you go touch her and do stuff with her, you know what's going to happen? You might break up with her eventually because you're not, committed. And then this girl's going to be somebody else's husband or whatever. And what's going to happen? You mess up the relationship because you touched something that doesn't belong to you, right? That girl should have been somebody else's soulmate, somebody else's husband. But you weren't the soulmate. So until you put the ring on the finger and get married, Hashem says you can't touch the girl. I'm sorry. This is not your wife. You can't touch this girl. Now again, you could kind of see the idea that if a guy's modest, and also the idea of shomer habrit. Again, shomer habrit means not touching or stimulating the genital organs except during intimate activities between husband and wife. So again, with husband and wife, as long as it's in a kosher way, the girl's not niddah. I'm gonna explain that. That's a whole other topic. It's allowed. But if the husband, if they're just dating and they're boyfriend girlfriend or whatever it is, right? Guess what? The guy's wasting tea. Guess what? The guy and girl are touching. It's not gonna lead to anything good. It's not gonna, trust me, it's not gonna make them want to get married faster. And if they're married and they're not doing it properly, like again, if a guy is hugging other girls behind his wife, trust me, it's not gonna make his wife happy and it's not gonna enhance the relationship. But if the guy is only dedicated to his wife and whatever, it will enhance the relationship. Okay? Yichud. Wow. Yichud is not means. Let's read it inside. A man and woman may not be secluded unless they are husband and wife or certain close blood relatives, such as parents with children. Right? So you're not allowed to seclude yourself with a woman who's forbidden for you. So if it's a girl that you're not married to, you can't be locked in a room with her where no one can see you guys, right? Because what's going to happen? You're going to end up sinning with her. You're going to do stuff with her. For example, somebody else's wife. There's so many stories where people are, alone with either somebody else's wife or with a girl that's not married to them, and they end up doing stuff, right? Because you're Yetzer Hara, there's no one watching. You're going to go in, right? So the idea is all these laws, all these safeguards, they're just so important. Each and every mitzvah, you could see that just built in within the mitzvah. If all Jews kept that, there'd be less acts of adultery committed. There'd be less people cheating on their wives, whether with their eyes or with, whatever it is, right? There'd be so many problems prevented if only people just kept the Torah. Because these are not rabbis making it up. This is the Torah, okay? Respecting and honoring your wife, family purity, niddah, wow. Niddah is powerful. So, and many more laws, okay? The point of all these is to avoid illicit sexual relationships or other sexual issues which are not allowed according to the Torah. Again, Hashem's not giving this because, I want to make your life hard. Let me make your life very difficult. No, I'm giving you these laws because I'm telling you, if you keep these laws, they're all very logical. If you keep these laws, not only will you get married to the right girl, because again, if you're dating and you're touching the girl, instead of thinking with your mind, you're going to be thinking with something else, right? You're not going to be thinking proper. You're going to be thinking with your desires. You might marry the wrong girl because of that, right? But if you're doing it in a modest way, whatever, again, whether you're married or whether it's with dating or whether it's with marriage, the idea is if you do it according to Hashem, you will be successful. So let's take one example of one mitzvah that Hashem says that we need to keep as Jews that will enhance a marriage. Take, for example, the laws of family purity. Okay, what does that mean, the laws of family purity? According to the Torah, when a woman has her menstrual cycle, she has her period, she is forbidden to be intimate with her husband for a certain period of time. Okay? Now, generally speaking, just the general rules of niddah, so once she has her period, she has to count. She has to wait until she stops bleeding. Usually that takes 4 to 5 days, 6 days, whatever, depending on the person. Okay, it takes a couple days, right? Again, these are very complicated. Ask your local Orthodox rabbi. I'm not, ruling for you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you the general idea of it, okay? But the idea is, until she stops bleeding, once she sees she stops bleeding, she checks herself, she sees she stops bleeding, she counts 7 clean days of purity, right? And again, there's so many details. I'm not saying all the details, so do not, assume based off this that you know how to do the law. Again, you got to go in depth. Okay? There's way more. Ask a local Orthodox rabbi. But the idea is what? You separate for after 5 days of the blood stopping, separate from 7 days, around 12 to 13 days, right? You can't be with your wife, right? During those times, you're forbidden to have intercourse, to touch your wife and all that, okay? Now, what's the point of that? What's the point? So when a woman has her menstrual cycle, she's forbidden to be intimate or even, touchy with her husband for a certain period of time. After a certain period of time passes, she has to immerse herself in a ritual bath called a mikveh, okay? So she goes in a body of water, right? And she purifies herself. And once again, she is permitted to be with her husband. How does the following law help marriage? Meaning, okay, it's great. What does this law have to do with marriage? How does that help? So if a person were to constantly indulge in his desires, they would ultimately get sick of that desire, and as a result, get sick of the pleasure that comes with it. For example, if you eat a steak every single day, you know what's going to happen to you? Eventually, that steak, you're going to toss it in the trash. Even though if steak is your favorite food and you loved it and you love it better than every other food, that's my favorite food. I love steak. When Shabbat comes, that's my go-to. But if I ate steak every single day, I'm not going to want to eat it every day. I'm going to get sick of it, even if it's my favorite food. So too, you can marry the most beautiful girl in the world. It doesn't matter. If you keep, being intimate and you don't take breaks, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get sick of her, and then you're going to want another girl. And again, the desire never ends, right? But the Torah says, don't worry, separate for this about 12-day period, right? So again, let's say again, around half the month, right? Why? Because if you're on and off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, right? Around, just generally speaking, what's going to happen? The desire will regenerate. This allows for the marriage to continue the rest of their lives without the couple losing their interest and passion for each other, their spark in each other. This is just one of the examples of the many laws God gave us to improve our relationship with our spouses. Again, crazy. You keep this law. Again, one mitzvah. Now, if someone doesn't keep it according to the T, you know what's going to happen? They're going to be lenient. They're going to say, okay, I might not be intimate, but I'll touch my wife. And then he's going to be intimate with his wife when she's, God forbid, on her period, right? Which is one of the, a very big sin in the Torah, right? It's one of the things that, God forbid, a person could lose a share to the world to come. That's why it's so important that if a guy is not married to a girl, that until you're married to a girl, until she dips in a mikveh. So either if you're a single guy, not to be intimate with anybody, or whether you're married, not to be intimate with your wife unless she's went to the mikveh and did all that whole purification process. The idea is if you keep this mitzvah, if you're strict with the rules of it and you actually keep it to how God said so, your marriage will never, dissipate. It will always be, you always have that spark. And I'm telling you, look at Orthodox couples. They never lose their interest in each other. They're married for 80 years, 90 years. And why is that? Because why do they have low divorce rates? And one of the reasons why people get divorced is because their wife's not attractive to them anymore. Obviously, if you're with your wife every day, you're going to not be attracted to her anymore because it's the same thing as a steak example. But the Orthodox Jews, you see, they live by the Torah, they keep Hashem's law, and now it's like their wedding night. Every time they go with each other, right? It's like their wedding night. Why? Because they keep the laws of Hashem. That's how important every single mitzvah is. Whether you understand, whether you not understand, there's divine wisdom behind everything. Why? Because Hashem, the creator of the universe, gave us these laws. Okay? Now, for amazing advice on successful marriage, please check out the book, what I said, Garden of Peace, right, by Rabbi Shalom Arush. This is a book you could go, there's one for men and one for women, okay? Women's Wisdom is Garden of Peace for Women by the same author. So again, if you want the girl version of this marriage book, you read that. Also read the other books, 10 Really Dumb Mistakes Smart Couples Make, right? And if you want, we have on our YouTube channel, we have a whole playlist called Marriage, okay? And if you go on that playlist, you could see, a lot of classes on marriage, okay, on that topic of marriage. Go to the Indisputable Truth YouTube channel, go to the place, go to marriage, fine. Also, for more information on the laws of family purity, talk to your Orthodox rabbi, and there's also books called The Complete Ways of Purity by The Laws of Family Purity by Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, The Laws of Niddah by Benjamin Forrest. There's a lot of books that talk about the laws of Niddah, right? Make sure it's by an Orthodox rabbi, and you could, if you want more, details on that, you could check those, okay? Fine. That's that. So finally, as we mentioned before, Orthodox Jews are obligated by the Torah to work on their character traits. So again, not only do you have to know what a marriage is about and all that, but you have to work on your character traits. So if you're a Jew and you're already working on your character traits, guess what? That means your marriage is going to automatically be enhanced when you work on your character traits. Okay? Orthodox Jews are obligated by Torah to work on their character traits. We are required on a positive traits such as being givers, charitable, humble, patient, accepting, right, etc. We're also required to fix our bad character traits. So not only work on the good ones, but avoid the bad ones. Anger, jealousy, selfishness, worry, laziness, pride, arrogance, and more. Okay? If both spouses, now think of that, if both spouses, okay, they come into the marriage improving their character traits, this will lead to a more successful marriage. So it's obvious. Again, so if someone keeps the Torah, they keep the laws of niddah, they keep the laws of guarding their eyes, they keep the laws of working on their character traits. If you just keep the 613 commandments, it's built in within the 613 commandments to have a better marriage. Now, I want to finish with this and we'll end here. What is the purpose of marriage, okay? What's the purpose of marriage and how do we have the best marriage? So in order to understand the purpose of marriage, it's not to have kids. Some people are married and they can't have kids. So it's not that. What is the purpose? The answer is as follows. In order to know the purpose of marriage, you got to know the purpose of life. So what do we say in the last classes? We talk about the purpose of life. We said the purpose of life. Why did God create us? To give us the ultimate pleasure. And that ultimate pleasure is have a relationship with Him. And where is that place to have the ultimate pleasure? It's in the next world. Why did God put us in this world? Because this world is a testing center, right? Where God puts us and gives us strength, weaknesses, tests, and challenges, right? And He tells us to do the good and avoid the bad, do the positive commandments, avoid the negative commandments, right? Study Torah, do the mitzvot, fix your character traits, help others, right? The idea is do the positive and avoid the negative, and based on how hard you work to do the positive and negative based off your circumstance will determine how close to God you will be in the next world. So the purpose of life is to get close to God. So what is the purpose of marriage? The purpose of marriage is the purpose of life. Meaning what? If the purpose of marriage is to get close to God, if the purpose of life is to get close to God, that means the purpose of marriage is to help you get close to God. Now, what does that mean? Meaning your wife, right, is the ultimate person to challenge you in those 4 areas of the purpose of life. Okay? So in order to have a good marriage, right, you have to study Torah. In order to have a good marriage, you have to fix your character traits, right? In order to have a good marriage, you have to keep the mitzvot, right? In order to have a good marriage, you have to be, a generous person. You have to be giving to others. So look at this, right? So your wife, right? The Torah calls the wife ezer kenegdo. She's a help against you. Now, how can I be a helper and against you? How does that make sense? The answer is resistance. Meaning, your coach, if your coach gives you 1 pound weights, you're not building any muscle. When your coach puts on the 500 pound weights, whatever, and you're lifting them up, right? What happens? That resistance, she's helping you by going against you, by giving you resistance. So your wife is your ultimate half. She's your soulmate. You both are one soul. Okay? Your wife, what does she do? She's a help against you. She helps you by going against you, meaning you're two opposites, right? You might be extremely extrovert, your wife might be an introvert. You might be extremely generous, your wife might be stingy, or probably most of the time it's the opposite. Okay, that's a joke. No one get offended, right? The idea is what? The idea is that your wife or husband is supposed to help you get to the middle. You both are opposite and you're trying to get each other to the middle. So if you're super stingy and your wife is super generous, in order to get stingy, you gotta, go, in order to get to the middle, right? If she's super generous that she gives all away her money, and you're super stingy that you don't give 1 penny to charity, the goal is to be in the middle. To be, you have to be giving, but you don't want to be so giving that you give all your stuff away, right? So the idea is to get to the middle. So the husband and wife help get each other, pull each other in the opposite direction to hit the middle. So the idea is ezer kenegdo. Your wife's there to help you. And that's why the Torah says, without a wife, you're half a person. You're like a donkey. You're a chomer. Why? Why are you a chamor? Chamor represents chomer, physicality. You're physical. You can never reach spirituality without getting married. That's why a lot of people say, oh, well, why do, Orthodox Jews, why do they get married so young? Because in order to fulfill the purpose of getting close to God, you need your wife. Again, your wife will help you learn more Torah. Your wife will help you keep mitzvot. There's a lot of mitzvahs that only your wife can keep because they're meant for a girl, like niddah, right? And you get that mitzvah by being married to her. Or there's a lot of mitzvahs, again, having kids or whatever it is, right? Or there's so many mitzvahs that you can't complete if you're not married. And number 3, the biggest way your wife helps you by fixing your character traits. Your wife, if you're lazy, sucks for you, buddy. Your wife wants to go out to dinner. You got to go out for dinner. You got to overcome the laziness. And if you don't, you're going to mess up your marriage, right? So the idea is your wife forces you to work on your character traits. So if you have an ego, guess what? You got to put your ego down and say sorry to your wife, even if you're the one who's right, okay? The idea is marriage helps you fix your Torah learning, it helps you work on your Torah learning, your character, your mitzvah observance, and helps you fix your character traits, and it causes you to be a more giving person, right? Because if you're going to be giving with your wife, you're going to be giving to other people, okay? It's going to help you become a better person. So that's the whole point of marriage. So you see why Orthodox Jews get married young. The Torah says, as soon as a person becomes mature, right, at a certain age, again, not when he's like 30, 40, right? A person should get married younger. Why not wait till you're 40, 50? Let me do whatever and I'll get married later. No, because the Torah says that if you wait longer, that means all those years, let's say someone gets married at 50. That means 50 years of his life, he missed out on the purpose. 50 years, his wife could have helped him work on his character traits. 50 years, he could have kept all those mitzvot. 50 years, he could have studied more Torah, right? But he couldn't study because he was always thinking about his desires in his mind, because his mind wasn't fully settled, right? The idea is your wife enables you to get close to God. So the whole purpose of marriage is to help you get to the purpose of life, get close to God. Now again, how do you have a good marriage? What I said before, studying the Torah of marriage, keeping the mitzvot of the Torah, right? Fixing your bad character traits and helping other people, and being a helper, being a giver, right? Helping other people. That's the key. That's the purpose of marriage. So Bezrat Hashem, we'll finish there. Next time we'll talk about the idea of happiness in Judaism. We'll talk about a lot more topics. But the idea is Judaism is the ultimate, Torah is the ultimate instruction manual to live the best life. And Bezrat Hashem, let's try our best to work and live by the Torah and keep its commandments. And Bezrat Hashem, in the merit of that, all the good blessings will come in our life. Thank you so much for listening.